What's going on YouTube? My name is Gary Blackwood, also known as Gazzy B. Welcome back to the vlog. Stealing little bits and pieces from all the other big vloggers. Really hope you guys like the Mariano style introduction today. Here at the Aria, beautiful Tuesday afternoon in Vegas. Gonna play some cards, gonna play some 5-10, maybe some 10-20. I've just got a CF 5-10. It looks like the straddle is on, which is nice. Didn't get a chance to look at the other players at the table. I don't know if it's a good or a bad game, but really happy to be here. Beautiful Tuesday afternoon, as I say. And that's it, that's the intro for you. Let's jump in and play some cards. And I'm really excited for this one today. Hope you guys enjoy. Okay guys, in we go, heading into the gorgeous Aria Casino here in Las Vegas. This is my 5th session of the trip and the 3rd one that I've vlogged. I won $30 off camera playing 2-5 at the win last week, and then had a nice $384 profit session here at the Aria. Some of it actually coming in a 5-minute PLO session while I was waiting for no limit. 4 wins out of 4 so far, hoping to make it 5 here today. Jumping into the game here, it becomes 6-handed after I joined. Looks a pretty tough game, but given there are 2 seats open, I'm happy to battle it out, and I'm sure it'll get a little better as the day goes on. Our first hand of the day is quite an interesting one. I'm under the gun with Ace-5 of hearts and raise it on up to $50. Remember, the straddle is on. We're playing 5-10-20 here. The button is going to make the call. The big blind calls as well, and we go 3 ways to our first flop of the day, and it's a pretty good one. It's Ace-5-4 rainbow with 1 heart. I see bet my hand for $60. The button is going to make the call, and the big blind gets out of the way. To the turn we go. It is the 6 of hearts. I've got 2 pair and a flush draw now. It's not a great card for my range though, so I check it on over to the button, and the button's going to take a stab here for $100. I'm going to just call here, but I think this is a mistake. I think in hindsight we should definitely be raising here. He never has better for this size, and if he does, I've got quite a lot of outs, and if the river just goes check check so often when he's got an ace, it's a bit of a disaster. So I decide to just call. Don't love that in hindsight, as I say. Kind of playing into his hands here. To the river, it's the deuce of hearts. I make the nut flush, and I kind of realize here that I should have check raised on the turn, so I try and atone for my error by leading out here for the size of the pot. I lead out for $470, and my opponent makes a pretty quick fold. Not the best opening hand of the day in terms of the quality of play, but it's always nice to make the nuts and win your first pot of the day. As mentioned, we are 6-handed here, so the hands are going to come thick and fast for now. Next up, I'm in the middle blind with King Jack offsuit. The button is raised to $50, and I'm going to put in the re-raise out of the second blind to $210. This might be a tiny bit too loose in a 3-blind game. I really should study up on the pre-flop stuff. The button is going to make the call here, and we go heads up to the flop. It is Queen 9-6 with 2 diamonds. I've got a gut shot to the nuts, so I decide to c-bet my hand here for $150, and again the button makes the call. To the turn, it's the 8 of clubs. Really tempting to bet here with my straight blocker, and I've got outs with a 10 for the super straight, but it's a double flush draw board. My opponent has already called a bet, so he's going to have something. I think we just want to choose a higher equity hand if we want to keep barreling here. We've got flush draws, we've got King 10 that's a double gutter. Those types of hands make for better barrels here, so I decide to just check, and when the bet comes in for $410, I of course just fold. Super interesting hand here, but 15 minutes later I'm going to get the chance for revenge versus the same player. I'm in the straddle with King 7 of spades. The small blind has raised it on up to $80. He's the guy from the last hand. I'm going to defend from the straddle here, and we go heads up to the flop. It is Queen 9-8 rainbow with 1 spade. My opponent checks it on over to me, and I think we have a nice stabbing hand here on the flop. Some backdoor equity that we can barrel on, so I decide to bet out for $80, and my opponent makes a pretty quick call. The turn is the Jack of hearts, full rainbow board. My opponent checks again, and my King X type hands are my only real equity barrel hands here with the gut shot, so I bet again, this time for $230. Interestingly enough, I've simmed this hand after I played the session, and we are supposed to bet again with our King X here, but only King 4, King 3, and King Deuce, and the reason for that is King 5, King 6, and King 7, they block his check folds when he's got hands like 7-6 and 7-5, so we do stab our King X, but the ones that don't block his folds, very cool, but very nerdy stuff. Anyway, once again, he calls, and we see the Ace of spades hit the river. He, of course, has some straights here, but lots of other hands that have to just fold here. So when he checks again, I decide to try and win the pot with a bet of $500, trying to make him fold some 2 pairs and some hands like King Jack. He calls pretty quickly. Good plan to try and make him fold 2 pair, Gazzy. He's basically snap called the river with Queen Jack offsuit. I cannot beat this guy so far today. This is going to send me down $1,155 for the day so far. Hoping I can turn it around though when we do a no limit double board bomb pot. I've got Queen Jack of spades, and these are the 2 flops. Action checks on over to me, and I take a stab on the flop with my 2 flush draws and my backdoor straight draws for $50. Now this is too small in hindsight. Again, I'm used to playing $30 bomb pots, so I miscalculated the size of the pot. Very silly stuff. 2 players are going going to make the call, and we go 3 ways to the 2 turns. I've now got 2 pretty big draws on both boards, and I think these guys will fast play their trips on the flop, so I decide to apply more pressure. Maybe we can make an ace fold. I bet the turn for $450. The guy to my left makes the call on the button, and the other player folds. Heads up we go to the river. Glorious river on the top board to give me the nuts, and a complete brick on the second board for me, but it is a relatively scary river on the second board, so I can apply huge pressure here with a nut straight. So I shove all in for over the size of the pot. It's around $2,100, and the button makes a very quick fold. I think this hand is well played. I don't have much experience with the NL double board bomb pots. Let me know what you think in the comments. This is the first real pot of the day coming my way here, and what's more, the game is now going to fill up before this next hand. We're now 8-handed, which is great news for me when I look down at pocket aces. The button is raised to $50. This small blind is a very smartly dressed non-pro who puts in a small re-raise to $150. I'm in the big blind here, and I'm of course going to put in the cold 4-bet, putting a little extra meat on the bone versus a recreational player here. I make it $430 to go. The button gets out the way, and the big blind flashes me pocket 9s as he folds. That was not supposed to happen. It was really quite annoying to see him fold a hand that I had tried to milk a little more money out of by sizing up myself pre-flop. Losing a bunch of small pots here today that aren't really vlog worthy. I'll quickly show you guys what I mean here. Next up, I'm in the small blind with pocket 4s. I raise it on up to $60. The straddle's going to make it $220, and I make the call. The flop is 10-9-7 with 2 diamonds. I check to my opponent. He just checks it back. The turn is the king of spades. I check again. He bets $180, and I of course just fold. Hands like this don't normally make it into the vlog, but I'm including it here to show you guys the type of bleed that it's been. They're relatively quick hands, they don't change much, but it's this kind of day that we're having so far. Absolutely not complaining though, it's the way it goes sometimes. Next up, I'm on the button with ace-10 offsuit. I raise it on up to $60. The small blind is an American pro. He's going to put in the re-raise to $240. Now this is really similar to a spot that I had in London recently, where I 4-bet bluffed with ace-10 offsuit, button versus small blind, and then got 5-bet jammed on. Let's hope that doesn't happen again here as I make it $600 to go. The small blind thinks for a few seconds, and then he makes the call. At least I didn't get jammed on. Heads up to the flop, it's 7-5-4 rainbow. My opponent checks it on over to me. This is not as scary a board as it looks. Yes, he's got some 1-pair hands, but very few 2-pair hands, no flop straights, very few flop sets as well. As I say, it's not as scary as it looks. He's got a lot of air here as well, so I say bet my hand for $300, just kind of denying equity, maybe making a hand like ace-jack or ace-queen fold as well. After about a minute of nervousness, he does eventually let it go. Really delighted this one worked out, and I didn't get shoved on pre-flop, and I didn't get into a sticky situation having to continue to barrel on the turn. Battling versus the same guy again 20 minutes later. I'm in the low jack for this one with ace-queen of diamonds. I raise it on up to $50. The hijack is going to put in the re-raise to $150, and my hand is very nice, very pretty. It doesn't do much 4-betting here. I just make the call. We go heads up to the flop. It is 8-7-6 all black. Now we love to lead out in 3-bet pots out of position on these 3-liners. They're really good boards for us, and we do a ton of leading. Even with hands like ace-queen, it looks like a really strong hand that might not lead, but it does do a decent amount of leading here. So I decide to lead for $110, 1/3 the size of the pot. After a few seconds, the hijack makes the call. The turn is the 7 of clubs. Not a great turn for me here. It really reduces the number of value hands that I've got. So I decide to check with my ace-queen and bluff with a little more equity. Happy to see it go check, check. The river is the deuce of clubs. 4 clubs on board now, and I check it on over to my opponent. If he bets out here, what makes for a good check raise river bluff for us? I don't think having an 8 is great or all that relevant. We don't block that many full houses. He's going to raise the flop or bet the turn with pocket 8s or 8-7 or hands like that. Again, a 9 isn't amazing for the same reasons. You know, we don't really block anything. He's going to raise his straights on the flop. He's going to bet them on the turn. I think that a hand like this is perfect. He's going to play some pocket aces, pocket queens like this, where he's just going to flat on the flop, maybe sometimes check back on the turn. He's also going to play a lot of hands like ace-queen or ace-king with a club like this. So I think our high cards like ace-queen of diamonds have really nice blockers here. We block hands like ace of diamonds, ace of clubs, ace of diamonds, queen of clubs, ace of clubs, queen of diamonds. So I am ready for the sick blocker check raise all in here on the river. but it just goes check, check. Really disappointed because I really wanted to throw out the check raise on the river with what I think are sick blockers. I haven't simmed this hand, so don't quote me on it. Unfortunately, my opponent's got 9-7 of diamonds. The disrespect is really real here. It's a very light 3-bet from my opponent, but it's worked out really well for him. I'm going to play some trashy diamond hands myself in this next one. I'm in the straddle with Jack 5 of diamonds. Shout out Linda Blackwood. She knows what it means. Small blind raises it on up to $50. The big blind makes the call. Both players are relatively new to the game and they're non-pros, slightly passive players as well. I make the call out of the straddle. We go 3 ways to the flop. It is queen 6-4 with 2 diamonds. It checks it on over to me, and I'm going to take a stab here versus these 2 relatively passive players. I bet out for $80. The small blind makes the call, and the big blind just folds. The turn is an offsuit 10. No help from me just yet, but I can put a lot of pressure on the small blind's hands, like his 6x, pocket 8s, all these types of hands which might just fold when they've got 2 overcards to the board facing them. So I bet out for $230, but again, he makes the call. Heading to the river. Now, whenever I'm drawing to diamonds, I always sing that Rihanna song in my head as the dealer's about to deal the river. Shine bright like a diamond. It never lets me down. The small blind checks again, and I bet out for a very milky $500 sizing. Milking accomplished as he makes a pretty quick call. After I show my hand, he nods and mucks, and I scoop in a very nice pot with my flush here. Dinner is going to arrive not long after this hand. I've ordered the steak from the Thai restaurant. It was absolutely delicious, but the sauce was way too spicy, so I have to have it kind of dry. Really not a fan of spicy food at all. You guys are learning so much about me this summer. That last hand took me so close to being back to even for the day. Let's hope these pocket kings will take me all the way into the black. I'm in the cutoff and raised to $50. The big blind makes the call and the straddle calls as well. We go 3 ways to the flop. It is 8-4-3 rainbow. Very safe flop for my pocket kings here. So I of course c-bet. I bet out for $80 and only the big blind calls. Heads up to the turn. It's an offsuit 9 full rainbow board here. I think we've got a clear bet again. I barrel for $240 and again the big blind makes the call. To the river, it's a very safe looking 6. Just as I'm thinking about how much to bet here, the big blind actually leads into me for $650. I'm really taken aback by this. What on earth can he be bluffing with here? Why would he ever lead out for value? He can't have any rivered 2 pairs or rivered straights given the positions he's in. This lead just doesn't make any sense. So in the end, I decide to call. He instantly nods his head and says, "You're good." I'm a nice guy. I don't make him show. Instead, I just show my kings and he mucks his hand back to back. Big pots coming my way here. This is going to send me up $830 for the day. Got around $5,600 in my stack here. A nice turnaround from being down $1,500 early in the session here. Hoping to keep pushing on and on when I look down at pocket queens in the small blind. A really tight European reg raises to $50. A loose passive recreational player calls in the cutoff. And a guy that I don't have a read on but seems a little tight makes it $250 on the button. I really don't know what to do here. It's a tight-ish player making a rare squeeze. I can't cold call, and folding seems really silly, so in the end I decide to make it $650 to go. A little bigger because there are more players in the pot and I'm out of position. I make it $650. Action is back on the original raiser who thinks it over and eventually shoves all in. Really didn't want to see that. The cutoff gets out the way. The button reluctantly folds his hand. I ask for a count from the dealer. It's around $2,900. He can have ace king here. It's only $2,300 more given I've put the $650 in. So I sigh and make the call. Any deeper here and I think I would actually just let it go. I ask once or twice. My opponent raises 2 fingers. We're going twice here at his request. The first board runs out relatively safe for me. No ace, no king, which is always good. There's an ace on the flop on the second board, which is not great. It means I'm chopping it best here, especially when the jack hits the river. He turns over his hand. He's got ace, king of clubs, which means we're chopping this one up. A bit scary there calling the shove versus this type player, but no harm done as we chop up the dead money. I actually won the first one, so I was free rolling on the second one. Would have been nice to hold twice there. Not long after this hand, though, the game is going to get a little more reggy, a little tougher, so I decide that I'm finished for the day. I pop my chips in the rack and make a short walk over to the cashier, booking my 5th winning session in a row. I have also somehow managed to slow motion my outro. I did this for like 6 days straight in LA. It was an absolute disaster, and this is an absolute disaster as well. I'm just going to say goodbye here, guys. If you've enjoyed the show, do me a favor, click the sub button. Until next time, YouTube, big thanks for watching. Take it easy.